motherhood, fatherhood, male and female identities, and like especially just like how your understanding of family changes like the way that you walk into marriage. So we're going to be it's especially going to be based on like the way that your family operated, the way that like your parents raised you, the way that you saw your parents love each other, like has left an influence on you, on the way that you see relationships and on the way that you expect and are going to like lean into in marriage and in relationships one day.
Kind of switch gears to talk about stereotypes in regards to what we typically think of male and female roles. So one of the craziest things about it is we always think of, you typically think of the knight in shining armor and the damsel in distress, and like, that's who you are. Be like, yeah, not exactly. Because just like how we know our parents and we know others in relationships, we also know that everyone doesn't always fit into a box. There are elements in which it's like, oh yes, there are characteristics in this box that you do fit, but you aren't completely contained in this box. You are more than the box. A friend of mine that I met in grad school she was very much a tomboy. And so one of the things that I remember her relating to me when she was growing up is that she came home from school one day and she was crying really, really bad. And she was like, not necessarily questioning whether or not she was a girl, but she was like, I don't like anything that girls like. I don't like pink. I don't like dresses. I don't like this. And going on and on and on about all the typical stereotypical things that girls like, and saying like she doesn't identify with any of those. Those are like contrary to who she is. And her mom and dad were like awesome and amazing in this particular instance, because they say, honey, we love you. You are a girl. I guarantee you that. But if you don't think that you're a girl because you don't like these particular things, then your definition of what a girl is too limited. It's too small. And so from that experience, she actually grew up, and then like, even though she was still extremely tomboyish, she never questioned once whether or not she was a girl. She was like, no, my parents told me I'm a girl. I'm a girl. And she just expanded her definition of what constitutes. And so it was really great for her to not have to question, be like, oh, I don't fit into these typical things. And so it became frustrating. So we're going to actually watch a clip from an interview between Abigail Favali, I think is how you pronounce her name, and Matt Fradd. And they're talking about masculinity and femininity.
Conversations about the masculine genius and the feminine genius, I think, need to also take into account the individual, right? So I think this is, again, I'm pulling from Edith Stein. There's the level of the human, which men and women fully share in humanity. So the full range of human virtues, for example, or capabilities in terms of rationality, all that kind of stuff, both men and women share fully in humanness. Then there's this level of sexual difference where there are differences between the sexes, generally speaking. And if you're talking on the aggregate, about certain personality traits or tastes or dispositions, then it often looks like a bimodal kind of graph, right? So, sorry, Mike. So you might have like a very, most women are here, or most men are here, but then you also have like some men who are over here and over here. So when it comes to the individual level, that's the third level, then an individual woman's femininity might look more analogous to some typical masculinity. But the point is, it's still femininity. And that's something I think is really important. I get this from John Paul II. He never uses the term masculine and feminine except in relation to masculine to male persons and feminine to female persons, because it is the body that characterizes the act that makes it feminine or masculine. So masculinity is a male body acting and being in the world, and femininity is a female body acting and being in the world. So I think we need to resist thinking of masculinity and femininity as these like free floating kind of archetypes that I'm like, I'm doing something feminine or I'm doing something masculine. No,
that is wonderful.
Like I
so
am
helpful.
Feminine, and so whatever I'm doing is feminine. So
that's right.
The reason that we're talking about this is that like sometimes you carry with yourself those expectations of what makes a man and what makes a female, or what traits are more masculine or what traits are more feminine, or what like virtues are more masculine or what virtues are more feminine. Or you walk into it with certain understandings of like, you know, this is like a more like the masculine part of the relationship is like the more the leadership, the blah, 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 the decision making, and the feminine is like staying at home and doing the dishes and da 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 da. Like the masculine is I go out and work and raise the I shouldn't be pounding the thing because it ruins the thing. I go out and raise the, you know, earn the bacon for the family and blah, 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 and the wife has to stay home and be pregnant and give me children and that sort of thing. And like, you know, so we enter into relationships with some understanding of that, you know, either like for that or against it, or we enter the relationship with some kind of understanding about like, you know, the guy should hold open the door for me, you know, the guy should pay for the meal, the guy should do that, the guy should do, or the guy could think, well, the girl needs to do this and dress this way and do this and da 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 da. Like we walk into the relationship with kind of those expectations of what masculine and feminine is, right? There's the line from like Ephesians, be subordinate to one another out of reverence for Christ. Wives should be subordinate to their husbands as to the Lord, for the husband is the head of his wife, just as Christ is of the church, he himself the savior of the body. As the church is subordinate to Christ, so wives should be subordinate to their husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wives even as Christ loved the church and handed himself over for her to sanctify her, cleansing her by the bath of water. It goes on a little bit. Here's the point, is like a lot of people walk into a relationship even with like a real religiously motivated understanding of what those roles are, you know? And like you might be more or less traditionally minded in that sense. If you ask me, the guy should be paying for dinner on your dates. The guy should be holding open the door for you. The guy, you know, like, but the point is like, you know, I know plenty of couples where it's like, you know, the wife should always wear ankle length shirts or shirts, goodness, you know, you walk into plenty of relationships where it's like, you know, the wife should be doing this and teaching the daughters to do this and handing on like how to cook and how to clean and, you know, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's good to kind of ask yourself now, the way that my family ran, the way that I saw my parents, the way that my family sees things, you know, might be different than other people, right? Like, where are my prejudices and biases as far as that goes? And like, how do I carry those into relationship? When you're walking into a relationship like that, the most important thing is, are you willing in that relationship to like give the gift of what the other person needs in that respect? If you're walking into a relationship and, you know, the girl is, you know, tends more towards being like a tomboy and wanting more like adventurous, like has like big career aspirations and that sort of thing. Like if you're walking into it like, no, a woman should be this and that and this, it's like, well, that's probably not going to work out super well. You know what I mean? Like if you walk in with real firm ideas and those ideas are more important to you than the other person, than who they are and what they need, then like that might prove to be an issue within the relationship. Does that make sense? Do you have anything to throw out on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, come on.
So with that, like as Father was saying about this, we get so stuck on the rules of like, well, this is a task that ought to be. And part of it is somewhat colored by the families that we grew up in and maybe the tasks that we saw our mom and dad do, and we think, oh, well, this is what you do as a mom, this is what you do as a dad, or this is what you do as the husband or the wife. And so with that, it's really about a conversation of, okay, what works in the relationship? What are the roles that you want to do? So the distribution of work within a household to make the household work. And so the question is like, you know, sometimes people have the idea of like, well, the wife must stay home, or the wife does the dishes, or the husband should make more money than the wife. But the craziest thing about that is it really is a conversation of what works. So like in our family, so with the dynamic that Jamie and I have is I'm the one who does the dishes. So Jamie is the one that cooks because I'm at work for the day, and so it's easier for her to cook because she's home. But at the same time, it's my job then to make sure that the dishes are done so that she has dishes so that she can make the food. She also does the laundry, but then I tend to do the folding of it. And so it's a complementary aspect of working together to do the various things that you need to do. But it's really worth having those conversations of saying, like, what are those? Because I know that I grew up not thinking that necessarily one task was one or the other, because I saw my dad always helping out around the house. He was like, hey, what do you need? Hey, what do you need? Hey, what do you need? I mean, granted, though, the typical feminine role, like my mom did the laundry, my mom did the dishes, my mom did this, she did a lot. But it wasn't like my dad was like, well, I'm not going to do that. It's like, no, it was more along the lines of, hey, do you want me to dry the dishes? Hey, do you want me to do this? And so with that, it's really that idea of challenging our perspectives. And one of the cool things about it is there is a saint who I have sheets out here to kind of give a little bio on him. But Blessed Benedict Daswa. He's from South Africa. He lived in modern times, like 1946 to 1990 is when he lived. So a relatively recent saint. But the cool thing about it was he broke the norm for his society in regards to the fact that he did things in his society that were traditionally considered feminine or womanly roles. Why? Because he had 8 kids and he needed to help out around the house. It's like, so he changed diapers. He did dishes. He did these things that they were like, wait, what? Like, no, men don't do that. And he's like, it doesn't matter. It needs to get done. And so the idea that just because it fits within our framework of what we think ought to be what a man does or what a woman does, it's like, you don't need to do that. You don't need to put that bar, that parameter on your significant other. So much so that it really comes down to the question of, do you love your spouse enough to help them with what makes them fulfilled? That's really what it comes down to.